Enya, welcome back. Very nice to have you back on the show.
Nice to be back.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
The extraordinary thing is, the last time you were on was pretty much the last time you did a live television interview.
That's 2 years ago, yeah. Yes,
You don't like doing these things, do you?
Well, I think I find when I have an album out, like now, the best of, or 2 years ago when it was The Memory of Trees, I find that it's important to promote the album and do a certain amount of interviews. But then I like to call it a day at a certain date, and therefore I don't do endless interviews.
But you vanished back into the studio, which seems to be all-consuming. Now, there are 2 new tracks on the Best Of album. Does that mean there's a studio album on the way?
I think so, because just working on the 2 new tracks, as you mentioned, I kind of got the feel of wanting to go back to the studios shortly. With the result, I'll only be doing a promotional trip to the end of December this time.
Right. Do you actually have anything to do with the Best Of album, or does the record company just kind of pluck the tracks, or do you actually listen to them all again and maybe play around with them a little bit?
Well, they had suggested it was a good time to release the Best Of, but I must admit, I decided what would go on the album. There was the obvious hits that would go on it, but I have a lot of different fans, and I found that I wanted to have Marble Hall's watermark, and so in the end, it was wonderful to listen to all the songs, and it's like reading a musical diary again, reliving that day when I wrote those songs.
It brings you back to the time and the feelings you were having and so on.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your fans. Is the Pope a fan?
Yes.
The Pope is a fan of yours?
Yes, I was with him last Christmas, actually. There was a performance I did in the Vatican, and I met with the Pope, and he thanked me for coming to the Vatican to perform for him.
Yeah, you've performed for other luminaries as well. The King of Sweden?
Yes, another fan.
What circumstances brought you to Sweden to play for him?
It was actually his birthday party, and it was a surprise that I was flown in to perform at a concert in his behalf.
Is that when you got used to the idea of perhaps living in a castle? when you met the King of Sweden?
Maybe so, but you're talking about the castle, I thought.
I'll talk to you about your new home in a few minutes' time. I'm wondering about live performance. When you were on with us 2 years ago, you talked about the possibility someday of going on the road, doing a tour, bringing all the high-tech equipment and masses of people and trying to reproduce in a concert situation the kind of music that you produce on record. Are we any nearer that day?
I hope so, because the plans I have for next year is to go into the studio to work on a new album, but to set aside time. Myself and the producer Nicky Ryan would really like time to work with other musicians on stage to hear how the music will adapt for stage. So it's something that's very much on my mind.
I believe George Lucas of Star Wars fame, he had some proposal for you.
He had, it's more to do with the visual side of it.
Yeah.
He thought, because the music has been used for soundtrack, that he could get involved with some of the visual for touring.
Which would be extraordinary to have that kind of mind being brought to bear on your music.
Yeah.
Now tell me about the castle.
Well, it was a case of just, I had seen this castle many times. And
you were living relatively close to the castle, yeah.
Yes, I was. It's been in the same family for 50 years, so it was quite a surprise to see it up for sale. And I remember being curious to see what it looked like, because it's very beautiful looking from the outside. And when I walked in, I just felt very, very at home. It was so beautiful, but it's not an intimidating big ballroom castle. It's very much a home.
Yeah, I actually got to go inside it on one occasion, because there was an art gallery attached to it.
Yes, yes.
And I had to pick up something one day from the art gallery, and I got a little guided tour up on the roof, and there are real castellations.
Yes, there are.
As you look at, but it tends to be, certainly on these days, shrouded in mist. Does that kind of suit your music? You have a foggy castle.
I just think it's, with the grounds as well, the grounds are very important to me. They're very mature, beautiful grounds, and it's just somewhere that I got a sense that I could be very much at home in.
Right. Will it mean a change in lifestyle for you, living in a castle?
In what regard?
Well, I've just wondered, maybe, I know you had a romance going the last time we talked, but that has finished, has it?
Yes, it has. Yeah.
There's nobody else you've lined up to help fill the castle with?
I've been too busy at the moment, but it's again something I'll be doing next year. I've been taking more time, and in my free time I've ended up traveling quite a bit, and so I think that might entail not
I
being
wasn't thinking of
entirely
someone
on
to
my
pick the
own.
furniture. I was thinking of someone
Yes,
on a more,
yeah.
you know, a relationship perhaps, and maybe even the prospect of
Well, I
a
hope
family
so.
someday.
Yes, I hope so.
But there's no one in mind?
Not at the moment, no.
All right. What are you intending to do now in the short term? You've got your castle, so you've got your home, you've got to redecorate that. Professionally, back in the studio again?
Well, again, I'll be touring for the next few weeks. I'll be in Japan, in Europe, and America, and that's going to take me up right to Christmas. So I think I'll have a break firstly, but I think I'm quite anxious to write some more music.
To give people an idea, when you get a theme, for example, for a tune, how long does it take you and Nikki to actually create what we hear on record? I mean, is it a week's work? Is it a month's work? Is it 2 months' work for each track, or what?
It can vary. It can vary because I take a while to write the melody, and then on arranging it, we like to have time to sometimes leave the song and come back to be a listener, and that's kind of a wonderful way to work with music. But they all vary so much. Sometimes you work maybe for 2 months on a song and the arrangement is totally wrong, so it's not enhancing the melody.
Throw it all out. If
Yeah.
you realize it's wrong, it just gets junked and you start again.
Yeah.
You're featured on the Princess Diana tribute album, isn't that so?
Yes, I am. It's the title from Watermark, Watermark itself. I had met with her twice, and one of the times I'd met with her, she spoke to me about how this was a favorite melody of hers, Watermark, and I thought it'd be lovely if it was included on the album.
And so it is.
Yeah.
Now, you have lots of nice titles. You have wonderful melodies, but you have lots of nice titles. And you're going to do a second song for us?
Yes,
And this is the title that you've given to the Best Of album. It's a beautiful, beautiful song.
Actually, it's not that one. I think the one, it's Marble Halls, actually.
Oh, you're going to do Marble Halls
Yes,
for me?
I am. I decided to.
You changed your mind?
Yes, I did. There was a lot of requests that I would perform Marble Halls tonight,
Marble
so I
Halls.
hope you don't mind.
Oh, no, I don't mind at all. I love Marble Halls, but this new song is fabulous as well.
Thank you.
Paint the Sky with Stars. Absolutely lovely. Anyway, you're going to do Marble Halls for me
Yes,
now.
I am.
Enya, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.